3635-6, part of the Home Rule Act that was enacted by the Georgia General Assembly several years ago. And it addresses what topics are authorized to be changed by a city council without going to the General Assembly for an amendment to the charter. As you know, under 3635-3, generally speaking, city councils have the power to address changes to their charter as they see fit. However, that power is generally limited by 3635-6. Specifically, in A1 of that code section, there is a limitation on any local act that does not involve the General Assembly that would have the effect of changing the form of the governing authority. The proposals in this particular amendment in section 303 would have the effect of changing this council from a strong mayor form of government to a council city manager form of government. As specifically discussed in a 2005 case involving the city of Milledgeville, that requires an act of the General Assembly. It is not something that this council has the power to do under the laws enacted by the Georgia General Assembly.
Sir, can I say something?
Whatever you'd like.
Can you tell me your name again?
My name is Chris Balch.
And I understand that you're an attorney, and I'm just a dumb old country boy. But what gives you the right to come here as a personal representative of the mayor and tell us what the state legislature is going to do and not do and what we have the right to do here? Now, I have some state legislatures and our state senator that gave me guidance through this thing from the beginning. Now, do you want to go there? Do you want to let's bring them into this loop? Councilman, if you're going to stand up here and tell us what we can and can't do, I know what the home run rule is. I know all about it. So I don't understand that you're representing him personally and come to our meeting to tell us what we can and can't do. There's something about that picture that's just not right.
Well, Councilman Walker, sir, forgive me for mispronouncing.
That's okay. Everybody does that. I won't hold that against you.
The mayor gave me the floor and offered to ask me to speak to this question.
Okay, so is what you got to say tonight going to have any bearing over what we decide here tonight? I don't think so. Not if you're representing him personally. So, do you understand?
I understand your perspective, sir. Fact of the matter is, the mayor asked me to speak, and I was doing what I was asked to do and what I was hired to do.
And ultimately, what you say isn't going to have anything to do with our decision.
Well, Councilman,
because it's not going to change my mind.
What I'm trying to do, Councilman, is respectfully suggest to this council that what the task that you, or the course that you are apparently intent on pursuing violates the law. And the choice that you have, and you can make that choice. I'm not suggesting that you don't have the right to make the choice. But the choice you have tonight is to either vote on that intent and to override this veto and change your form of government, which will get you sued to overturn that decision, or you can deviate from that course and decide that you're going to follow the law and go to your state legislatures to make a change if that's what you intend to do.
I resent being threatened.
Nobody's threatened.
He needs to say, I'm expressing an opinion. I'm being threatened, and I resent it.
You know, this is just all out of line here. If that ultimately, that's what you came here to say. You came here to threaten us that we're going to be sued, that if we override these vetoes, we're breaking the law. Right? That's what you just said. That's exactly what you just said. And I'm like Councilmember Sales. I don't really appreciate being threatened. I don't like a private attorney, in particularly, coming in here and threatening me.
Well, Councilman, I would suggest
you know, these are some things that, as a council, we represent the people of Grantville that are there in favor of this. So,
Councilman, I will respectfully respond to both you and to Councilman Sells that as a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, I don't make threats. I state what the intent of my client is if you pursue this action. It's not a threat, Councilman Sells. It's not any sort of a threat.
We disagree. Will you tell me I'm gonna be sued for vetoing this, for overriding this veto? You tell me I'm gonna be sued? Sir, that is a threat.
By a private
And
attorney
you can,
on top of that.
we can disagree on
There's
Webster.
just something about this, it stinks, the whole thing.
I call for the vote.
Go ahead.
Your call is out of order because I have recognized the attorney, and until he completes all his remarks, he has the floor.
You have a path that is lawful. If
Sir,
you
what was your MOS in the Marine Corps? I'm just curious.
started off as an 0330, which is a machine gunner. I finished off my life running the Staff Judge Advocate's office for the 1st Marine Division.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
I held billets in every rank. Every time I held a billet in the United States Marine Corps, I held it for at least 3 pay grades above my enlisted rank. I earned a United States Navy Achievement Medal as part of my service in the United States Marine Corps on active duty. As Mr. Grieshaber well knows, I clerked for a United States District Judge who served in the Albany District when he was the city attorney in Albany. If you want to come after my credentials, Mr.
No,
Walker, sir.
I just asked, I was in the Marine Corps myself, I just wanted to know.
Appreciate your service, sir.
I do too.
Okay, now, he has the floor, and I'm not gonna keep allowing interruptions.
The plain language of the statute is clear. It has a clear, complete, and entire admonition about what the jurisdiction and authority of this council is and what it is not. The authority of this council is circumscribed by the Georgia General Assembly, who created the city of Granville and who amends its charter as requested by this council. If you elected to, you could go to your local delegation and ask for these changes to be made by local act. You have that power. The one thing I would suggest to you that you could not do, because it compounds the error that you're attempting to commit tonight, is you cannot make the existence of the mayor's power contingent on a hiring decision of a third party. What you do in section 303 is you say, if there is no city manager, the mayor has certain powers. If there is not a city manager, the mayor has other powers. That is effectively changing the form of government from a city manager council form of government to a strong mayor form of government simply by the effect of a hiring decision. The General Assembly would not allow you to do that, even if the rest of what you're trying to do tonight were lawful, which it is not. The goal of my presentation was not to pick a fight. The goal of my presentation was not to threaten anyone. It was to explain your alternative choices. The goal of my presentation was to describe for you what the plain language of the statute requires and what the consequences of ignoring that plain language can be. Mr. Mayor, I think that's all I need to present at this time. I will also suggest to the council that my remarks that it applies to 303 also apply to your consideration of the veto of section 308, because similarly 308 makes the same errors of changing the form of government and making the change contingent on a hiring decision, so that the form of government for the city would flip-flop back and forth depending on whether or not somebody sat in Mr. Grieshaber's chair.
No.
You mean the city manager's chair?
Yes, sir. Sorry, not specifically you individually, Mr. Grieshaber, please excuse me. In the city manager's chair, someone is sitting in that billet, in that office, then the form of government changes simply by the filling of that office as opposed to that office being vacant. If there's nothing else, Mr. Mayor, I'll be done.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am, of course.
Before you leave, I want to make this crystal clear. You said this is unlawful, what they are trying to do tonight?
Yes, ma'am, in my judgment it is.
Thank you.
Sir, so I'm assuming that in your professional opinion, that if we're unlawful and somebody's gonna sue us, that will be you.
On the mayor's behalf, yes, sir, if he makes that decision.
Okay.
What I'm trying to do, Councilman, is talk you out of my having a lawsuit to file. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't want to file a lawsuit against this city. It's not my intent. I represent cities for a living and have done my entire career except for the 2 years I spent in chambers with Judge Fitzpatrick. It is not my intent to pick a fight. It is not my intent to threaten anyone. It's not my intent to articulate anything other than the law as I understand it and the facts as I believe them to be. I don't want to file that lawsuit. I think it's disruptive to the governance of this city. I think it's disruptive to the governance of this council. And with the mayor's permission, I will tell you, I have done everything I can to talk him out of this.
Talk him out of what?
Out of filing a lawsuit and picking this fight with this council.
Well, I guess we'll just have to see how this all comes out, because I had some guidance by our state representatives and state senators. So I guess I'm prepared to move forward.
It's entirely your call, Councilman.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for your
Thank you
time.
very much, Chris. And I'm not threatening this. I retained him for the purpose of enforcing what I believe is the charter of this city and the Georgia State Code, which each and every one of us took an oath to uphold the laws of the state of Georgia and the charter of this city. And if you go against that law that has been cited to you, then you all each are involved in violation of your oath of office.
Thank you.
And it's not a threat, but I intend to enforce the charter. And y'all, if y'all want to do this, just like he said, you can do it, but there's a proper way of doing it, and this is not it. Anybody else got any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
Chris, thank you for your service. And I'd also like to thank you for adding in my judgment. And you have expressed your judgment, and I appreciate that. What I believe, and what I believe will hold up, is what we're not changing the form of government. We are defining positions. We hired a city manager for $70,000 plus. And we hire the city manager because he has the expertise and the skill to manage the city. That's what he is trained to do. And our job is to watch him and make sure this city is run properly. That's why we're here. And you stated the word you used, that if we do this, we have been disruptive. Let me tell you what is disruptive. What is disruptive is the way the mayor has mishandled his position, undermined the professional city manager, and undermined him so that he can't do his job and he can't manage the city. And we've had one disaster after another because his untrained, unskilled judgment is what is running this city instead of the man we've hired to do it. So I suspect and hope we're going to go through with this, and if you are correct, you can change it. But it is not my opinion you are, and we will go forward or we won't go forward. But my judgment won't be based on what you said tonight. However, I appreciate you being here and representing your client. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Sir, have you read the?
Wait until you acknowledge.
You acknowledge?
I'm really getting short on patience of you just
Well,
blurting out anytime you want to.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, but you asked, did anybody else have anything to say?
Hey,
So-
and then you proper
Okay.
demeanor to do it. Go ahead.
You know, some of these changes resulted as a chain effect of the district attorney of Coweta County recommending that we hire a outside legal team to look into a project that happened here 2 years ago. And we did. We hired a very reputable law firm out of Atlanta to look into this. Have you read that report?
he had.
Huh?
He's aware of what went on.
Did you read the
Aware of that.
report, sir? I didn't ask you, I asked him.
Mr.
Did
Mayor,
you read
am I
the
authorized
report?
to answer the question?
I just asked you, did you read the report in its entirety?
And I'm asking the presiding officer if I'm authorized to answer the question, because I'm not been given the floor or called to the podium to address answers and questions from the witness.
If you think it's proper, yes, you have my.
Councilman, I've not read the report. I am aware of the situation for which the investigation arose. I've read the report is prepared by the sheriff's office.
Okay.
I wasn't aware that there was a second report
I
after the
think
second.
we can provide you with a copy of that before you leave here this evening. You could take some consideration into that. And between the recommendations, and they're only, hey, they're a lawyer like you, they made recommendations. But beyond that, then it was backed up by legislators, I'll put it that way. So I think you might ought to consider reading that report. That's where some of these minor changes in the charter have come from.
With respect, Councilman, what recommendations were made are immaterial to the legal position that I have articulated this evening. The legal position I have articulated is that there is a path to make the changes you are asking for. It is not the path you have elected to proceed on. And frankly, there's more than 250 people who sit in the General Assembly. If you go ask any group of those 250 members of the General Assembly, whether on the House side or the Senate side, you're going to get 300 answers to the same question. So I fully expect that your local delegation has given you the advice that they believe is accurate. What I'm trying to suggest to you is that with a judiciary that is empowered by the Supreme Court to look at the plain language of a statute and apply that plain language, and to look at the plain language of the ordinance that you're attempting to override a veto on tonight and determine what's going on by that, you're not changing responsibilities. You're fundamentally altering the way this city has been functioning since the last charter was adopted by the General Assembly in 1988. You are stripping the mayor of his supervisory responsibilities and delegating those to the city manager. Now you have the absolute authority to make the suggestions and make the changes that Mr. Sells referred to about hiring a professional city manager to run the city and have that be the form of government you want to follow. I don't dispute that power. But where you get that power is from the General Assembly, not from your own selves. And that's the dispute that you and I have tonight, Councilman, is where does the authority of this council to act arise? And the authority of this council is limited by operation of law to those powers that the General Assembly has granted. And if the General Assembly has not granted you power, or has given you power and then reserved some of that power back to itself, which is what it's done in Article 35 of Title 36, that limits the ability of this council to act. That's the black letter law as I understand it. That's the straight out of the book, read the text, the words don't mean anything else, rule.
Okay, I guess we'll find out. And I was just curious, you work for a lot of cities, you said, you referenced that earlier.
Yes, sir.
How many charters do you know that go back to 1988 that hadn't been completely amended as you're saying we gotta do these?
Well, I'm the general counsel for the city of Brookhaven, who is only 7 years old, and we've had amendments to our charter already. So I can tell you
They amend
that,
their charter, but it hadn't been completely rewritten.
no, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Mayor?
But as I understand it, that's not what you're saying, that they can't make the changes, but there is a process that has to be followed under the Georgia law.
Yes, sir.
And just because our two representatives at the legislature have indicated, I guess, that they're gonna approve these changes or would approve them, they still have to be approved by the whole General Assembly, am I correct?
There would have to be local act introduced to make the changes that are proposed to sections 303 and 308, as I read those changes. And because those are not a change to the descriptions of the job responsibilities, they fundamentally alter the mechanism by which the city conducts its business.
Anybody else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor of overriding the veto?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
For the record, I am also. Veto is overridden and we'll go forward. Next order of business will be the amendment, what was it we amended there?
Sir, we're at discussion decision on veto of ordinance number 2019-15 to add a new paragraph to Charter Section 304, which pertains to the city manager.
Okay, so they didn't take all three of them?
No, you read off one at a time. You read the first one. So now we've got to do them individually.
All right.
Motion to override the veto.
All right, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?